Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about the coat of plates. Okay, this is a Bisbee design, and basically this would have been worn over male armor. Okay, so basically first you have a gamson, right, which is a padded jacket. Then you would have the mail, okay, and then the coat of plates would be fitted over it. Okay, they started wearing this around the 1300s. Okay, so we're in the 14th century, and there was a very specific reason why they started wearing this. Okay. And that reason was the heavy lance. And basically the lance, okay, was a heavy spear, okay. And basically the knight would have been sitting on the horse, he would have had a shield here, and the lance would have been held under his arm. It would have been a lot longer than this, it would have been counterbalanced in the back. And basically what he's doing is he's not just using his arm or his body, he actually doesn't use his arm at all. It's locked in place. If anything, he might make a slight motion like that, but what he's really doing is he's using the momentum of the horse. Okay, the horse could weigh as much as 2,000 pounds, and charging at close to 30 miles per hour. He's using the momentum of the horse to transfer that power up from the horse through his body into the lance. Okay, and I imagine that had to be brutal on the body. Okay, now there were some significant advances that made this possible. Okay, the Romans, all right, and the ancient Greeks, they had cavalry, but they could not have used the heavy lance, and the reason is they had not invented the stirrups yet. Okay, the stirrups, which most of us think are just for the purpose of hooking our feet and climbing onto the horse, okay, served a much more important purpose to the knight. What the knight did is basically, he hooked his feet into the stirrups and he pushed forward. Okay, so basically at the moment of impact, he would push against the stirrup forward and transfer all that energy from the horse into his body out through the lance. Okay. On the receiving end, if I'm being attacked by somebody with a lance, what I want to do is I want to use my shield to deflect the blow. Okay, because basically I don't want to take a blow from a lance head on. Like, I'm not going to hold my shield flat. What I want to do is ideally hold it at a slight angle and try to deflect the blow. If for any reason I fail, basically that's going to land on this coat of plate, and there's plates underneath this, which I'll show you in a minute. And even with the coat of plates, I imagine that the blow would, you're going to feel it even through a coat of plates. Okay? But the thing that made this possible was the stirrups and the high back saddle. The saddle that they started using, basically it came up a lot higher up to here, and it kind of helped lock the knight into place. Okay, so basically he could transfer that force forward into his lance, and it was harder for him to get knocked off his horse. Okay, let me take this coat of plate off so you can see what it looks like on the inside. Now, rather than use metal, I use plastic. Right, but this is what it would have looked like. These would have been steel plates, which would have been, the benefit of the steel would have been that they would have been a lot thinner, but tempered. Okay, so the steel was actually thinner but tempered, and the plates would have been overlapping. I did not overlap these because the plastic's thicker. It's light, but it's also thick, and if I tried to overlap this, basically it would have just looked too weird. So I didn't overlap these, but the steel plates would have been tempered. And by tempering them, basically what you do is you harden them. Okay, so this is the Bisbee design. Basically, there's some plates on the side. These are the side plates. These are the chest plates, chest plate, stomach plates, and again side plates. Sometimes there could have been some plates on the back side. Sometimes they may have not. Basically, you don't want your armor getting too heavy. So you have your plates, which would have been worn over mail. The mail basically would have basically this would have been a shirt that came down to here. And prior to the couched lance, this is pretty much all you needed. But if you're fighting, with light spears, well, a spear can penetrate this, but this will stop. This is a sharp sword. I mean, you cannot cut through this with a sword. What you can do though is break bones. If you take a hard shot to the clavicle, right here, with this you can break the guy's bones. You can break his arm. You can break his clavicle. There's a lot of bones that you can break with this. Now, from horseback, basically, like I have two different swords here. This is the type of sword that I would prefer to use if I'm on foot, okay? Because basically, it's a little bit more tapered, and this is fast. I can move this around. This, with the shield. This is a fast, nimble sword. Okay? From horseback, I would want a sword like this. As you can see, it's a little bit wider at the end. This is a very fast sword. This is a sword that makes a lot of big loops. From horseback, basically, if your lance breaks, this is your backup weapon, basically. Okay, so this is the equivalent of a pistol. The lance is your rifle. Okay, that's your AR-15, and this is your pistol. Okay, so when the lance breaks, you go to this, and again, you're using the momentum of the horse. Okay, as the horse is charging at about 30 miles an hour, you make a downward cut, or against opposing cavalry, you make a horizontal cut as you're going by. Okay, and you're keeping the shield in front of you, looking around. With the heater shield, you're looking around the corners. You can also cut to the other side, although that is a much harder shot. It's a lot harder to do with the sword. Basically, the heater shields that would have been used on horses would have been smaller than this. Okay, so it would have been easier to bring the shield down. Use this the back corner to block your head as you cut down. Okay, so that was possible. With the lance, it's a lot easier. If I'm riding the horse, I can aim it there. I can aim it there. So the lance was the primary weapon from horseback. When you think of medieval knights, you're not thinking Marines or Army Rangers. Putting this in a modern context, you're thinking Top Gun. Okay. You're thinking, F-36 fighter jets. That was the equivalent of the knight back then. Okay, basically they just like modern day fighters, they come in, they drop their bombs, and they come out. Knights did the same thing. They came in, they made their charge, they got out, they regrouped, they came back in. And the interesting thing to be aware of is, first let me take this off. The horse was armored too. Okay, a lot of times when you look at the medieval horses, or you look at pictures, or you look at you look at some sculptures, right? They appear to be covered in something that appears to be like cloth. But the purpose of that cloth was to cover the mail that was underneath it. Okay, the mail, which both the knight and the horse wore, basically was a series of these flattened rings that were riveted together. So the horse was armored like that. And the reason why you covered this was obviously this is steel. So as the sun beats down on it, that's going to get hot. So they would have covered plates. I mean, nowadays, when you go to the museum, you see all the armor exposed. But in reality, anything that's metal, you cover so the sun doesn't bake you. Okay, even the helmet. They would even cover their helmets. Right now I'm wearing some pieces of plates, and this is the way that the armor progressed. Basically, they went from just mail, okay, to a coat of plates, which I just showed you over there. And then what they started doing is they started just adding pieces of plates. So they added elbows, greaves, some knees. The legs were, especially from horseback, the legs was one of the things that they put plates on initially, all right, because the legs, of course, are lower to the ground, a little bit easier to attack. So they started wearing greaves, they started wearing some elbows, and then little by little you start seeing the full plate armor starting to develop over the next 200 years after that. One of the things to keep in mind is when you go to the museums, and you look at that plate armor, what you're really looking at is tournament armor. Okay, that's competition armor. That's not usually fighting armor, because that's basically meant for a man to wear for a very short period of time, and basically to move in a single direction against another competitor. Okay, basically the way wars actually happened is that people they had to usually travel for weeks or months just to get to the battlefield. Okay, so you had to, so you wanted protective armor, but at the same time, it had to be, it couldn't be too heavy. It had to be comfortable because you had to live in it. So they pretty much wore the least amount of armor possible. Okay, that was the goal. They wanted the least amount of armor possible. They could have been wearing the coat of plates in earlier centuries, but they didn't because they really didn't need it. Once the heavy lance came along, and now they're using the momentum of the horse, to put all that power into the lance, pushing against the stirrups. At that point, they said, okay, great, now we need to make some better armor. Then they developed the coat of plates. Okay, the gambeson basically was padded. It's not super thick padding, especially because basically this is, that's got rivets and stuff in it. So you're not. This is gonna dig into your skin if you put this on your skin or over like a thin t-shirt. So you needed something thick to be able to, for that to be wearable. And what they started doing is over time they started attaching pieces of plate. These elbows and this vambrace here is actually tied onto the armor. Okay, and this, especially the arms over here, because especially if I'm swinging the sword, as I'm swinging the sword, the sword is going forward, but basically, all this stuff wants to also go forward and slide down my arm. So by tying it onto the jacket, it basically stays in place. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video. If you got any questions, please post them. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Talk to you guys next time.